Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Music Reviews from Saxville. I'm your host, Mark, and I'm going to share with you this evening memories of David Crosby. Not that I ever met the man, but I do have some stories to tell here on Music Reviews from Saxville. But first of all, let's show you this classic album. Here's Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Of course, there's David. Show you the back. You have to like this old kind of old house motif. There's the old well-worn chair there. Here's the insert. The guys rocking out in their fur coats here. That's cool. This album was humongous. But anyway, David was in, of course, the Byrds, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. There's an '88 album by those guys called American Dream, the title. And that was the title track. That was the hit off the album. But there's, of course, David there. Here's the back of it. Back of it's cool. And then here is, of course, the liner notes and the guys in the studio. Crosby could be a real character. He was known for being very opinionated, very outspoken. He didn't seem to back away from a good verbal fight. He got into it with a lot of people over the years, including bandmates like Neil Young and there's Graham Nash, and just really mixed it up with those guys. But they were in a band together, all in it together, and brothers basically. You spend that much time with somebody, that's not just your bandmate. That's your brother, with touring and on the road, in the studio. Anyway, he also would get into it. In the last year and a half, he got into it with Ted Nugent. They went back and forth and exchanged insults and barbs, and they were, because they're totally different politically. David insulted a bunch of Van Halen fans back after Edward Van Halen passed in 2020. He said, he was talking about Eddie, and he said, Eddie Van Halen, meh, like that. He said, I like Jimi Hendrix. And of course he got a lot of heat for that. And then people, of course, in the age of the internet, lit David up online. And to his credit, he did apologize, so he apologized for it. But my couple favorite memories of David Crosby. I met a guy, follow the trail here, okay? I met a guy who knew a person who was friends with Crosby's son. And the way the story goes, this guy was hanging out in a social setting, and David's son was there, and David was there, and they weren't talking about music. A lot of these artists probably hate to talk about music, especially because they get asked questions all the time. They're in interviews and stuff, but they were just talking just like you and I would talk. It was like, hey, what's the price of gas where you live, and that kind of thing. So David obviously had another side, but my favorite memory of David Crosby was after 9/11 on the Tonight Show. Jay Leno had Senator John McCain of Arizona, and Crosby, Stills, and Nash on. And you have to remember, Senator John McCain was a prisoner in Vietnam, POW, was tortured. They kept him they called him tiger cages, very confined. And so at the end of the show, of course, Crosby, Stills, and Nash sang a song. And David was on lead for the song, My Country, 'Tis of Thee. It was right after 9/11. And as David was singing the song, the cameraman panned in on Senator John McCain sitting over there in the guest chair, and big old tears welled up in his eyes as David Crosby was singing My Country, 'Tis of Thee. So anyway, Rest in peace, Mr. David Crosby, gone at the age of 81. Thank you for watching this edition of Music Reviews from Saxville. Again, I'm your host, Mark, and I hope to see you all sooner rather than later. Good night.